which I think are perfect for beginners. In your kit, you should have received a hook, darning needle, a stitch marker, a keychain, and 2 colors for your yarn. And you're also going to need your own pair of scissors for the end. Before we start, I'm just going to give a couple of disclaimers. First, in order to crochet your flower keychain, I'm going to be going over different techniques in this video. However, if you want a more in-depth tutorial on the different crochet techniques, try watching my basics of crochet video that goes over all the basic techniques and stitches of crochet. The next thing is that crochet involves a lot of patience. When I teach you some of these stitches, you may need to do them a couple of times just to get it right, but keep on trying and you'll eventually get it. First, we're going to start off by learning how to hold the hook. First, we're going to take the hook and we're going to grab it and we're going to wrap all of our fingers around and put our thumb at the top like so, kind of like how you would hold a knife. Pretend like you're chopping something and that's how you would hold the hook. So as you're crocheting, you'll use your thumb to drive the force and then wrap around with the rest of your fingers. Next, I'm going to teach you how to hold the piece. Next, we're going to grab the yarn and we're going to open it like so. Then we're going to take our less dominant hand and we're going to spread it out like this. We're just going to pretend like there's a crochet piece at the end of this yarn right here, but we're going to take the end of the yarn and then we're going to place it over our pinky and then just secure that with your thumb underneath the next 2 fingers and over and around your pointer finger. Then we're just going to clamp that with our pinky and our ring finger to hold that in place. So you just pull that, make sure that it's tight, and like I said, still clamp that there. And then we're going to take our thumb and our middle finger and we're going to hold the end like that. So this is how you would hold the piece. And you'll notice that when you lift up your pointer finger like this, it should create some tension in this yarn right here. So when you're crocheting, you want to make sure that you have enough tension by lifting up your finger and then also pulling down on the yarn. So that will ensure that your yarn is never too loose. Whenever you start to crochet, you want to make sure that you always hold the yarn like this. Otherwise, you may have some difficulties when you're crocheting. Next, we're going to start with a technique that's called the magic ring. And this technique may take a couple of tries, but as I said before, keep on trying and then you'll eventually get it. So next we're going to take our less dominant hand and we're going to take our pointer finger and our middle finger and make sure that the fingertips are facing up like so. Then we're going to take our dominant hand and then we're going to just take the yarn like this and then drape it over our 2 fingers, making sure that the short end is facing us and then the long end is facing away from us. Then we're going to take our thumb and just secure that at the top. Then take the long end, so make sure you're taking the long end and not the short end, and we're just going to take that and wrap it around and then form an X at the top. Then we're going to bring that back down to where the next strand of yarn is and then just hold that with our thumb and our ring finger. Then we're going to take it and then we're going to twist it so that you see 2 strands of yarn at the top. So we have an X at the bottom where our fingertips are and then 2 strands at the top. Then we're going to take our hook and we're going to place it underneath the first strand of yarn and then over the second one. Then we're going to pull the second strand of yarn underneath the first one and then we're going to twist with our hook. So this is what we should currently have. Next, we're going to take our thumb and our pointer finger of our dominant hand, and then we're going to take that and pinch the top. So make sure you pinch everything where the twist is and then also the other strands of yarn. We're going to grab everything. If you only grab 1 strand of yarn or 1 part, it's going to come undone. You're going to have to start over again. But starting over again is not the end of the world, but you want to make sure that you grab everything. So after we grab everything, we're going to place the yarn on our hands just like how I told you before, making sure that you're still grabbing everything at the top. So don't let go unless you want to start over again. So we're going to take our less dominant hand, spread it like before, and then place our yarn over the pinky finger. Make sure that we're doing this with the long piece and not the short end. So over the pinky, underneath the next two fingers, and over and around the pointer finger. Then this is where we're going to swap hands. So we're going to take our thumb and our middle finger, and we're going to swap where we're grabbing this piece right here at the top. Remember where we grabbed everything? We're just going to swap with our thumb and middle finger of our less dominant hand. And now everything should be on our less dominant hand. So next, we're going to just pull this bottom long piece of yarn right here so that it's tight. And now we could grab this hook, like how I told you before, in the knife position. And then we're going to do something that is called a yarn over. So make sure that we're still grabbing this base right here to make sure that it is secure. So we're going to take our hook and we're going to place it towards us. So we're going to move the hook towards us and then underneath the yarn like so. So we should end with the hook facing away from us. So this is what we should have currently. And then we're going to take our hook and then pull it through that first loop. So here's what we currently should have. That technique that we just did where we pulled the second loop through the first one is actually called a chain. So let's go ahead and do one more chain. So if you remember, that involved us yarning over. So that means the yarn is over our hook, and you want to make sure that the hook is facing away from you. Every time that we yarn over, you want to make sure that the hook ends facing away from you. There's something that's called a yarn under that you may be compelled to do, where the hook lands towards you, but that is actually not what we want. We want to make sure that the hook lands away from us, like so. Then we're going to take this strand of yarn and then pull it through the loop that's already on our hook. So here we just chained once and then chained twice. So we have 2 chains on our hook. Congratulations, you've just completed your first magic ring. The next step is to place a half double crochet stitch inside of the magic ring. And if you're not familiar with that, that is completely okay, because remember, this is for beginners. So first, in order to do that, we're going to yarn over, just like how I said before. We're going to make sure that the hook lands away from us and not towards us. So this is what we should have. And then we're going to take the top part of our hook and then place that inside of the magic ring. And here you can see that I'm actually opening up the magic ring with the rest of my fingers. So you could do that in a way that is comfortable to you. So just make sure that you place the hook inside like so. So here's what you should have. You should have 2 loops on your hook, and then you're inside of the magic ring. So that's a third one. And then next we're going to place our hook behind the yarn like so, and then pull that through. So you're going to be compelled, and I'm going to do this over again just to show you what not to do. You're going to be compelled to wrap your hook around, but that is actually not what you want to do. You only want to have 1 loop on the top and then just hook onto the yarn like so and then pull it through. So you don't need to wrap it around. Now we have 3 loops on our hook and it's above our magic ring. You want to make sure that all 3 of the loops are above your magic ring. And then you want to yarn over once again, making sure that the hook is facing away from us. So now that we have 4 loops, we're going to take this last loop and then place it through these 3 loops. This may be a little tricky, but I really want you to take your time with this. And here's some tips to take note of. When you're doing this, you want to make sure that your hook is facing downward towards the magic ring. So there's how you do half double crochet. So let me show you that again. And I'll show you ways that will make it a little bit more difficult for you. So here, I'm just gonna try to pull it, but you see that the hook is not actually facing down, it's facing sideways. So here it's pretty hard for me to pull it through. And likewise, if I face it upwards, that's gonna be pretty hard to pull it through. But when I face my hook down, that makes it a lot easier, you'll see. And then I'll take my time to just go through the individual ones. The next thing you wanna make sure that you don't do is you don't want to push your hook down like this or pull your hook up. You wanna make sure that you're pulling the hook to the side. So that's all you need to do. If you push it down, then you're actually going to be pinching it to where it's going to be kind of hard to pull it through. You just want to glide it across with your hook down, and then take your time and pull it through each individual loop. And if that still doesn't work, the last thing that you can try is you can actually take each of these individual loops. So pull your hook to where it's right at the base, and then you could take this loop and then pull it over so that we have that original loop here, and then do the second one, and then do the third one. So that is, that should be your last resort, but that should work as well. So now that you've completed your half double crochet, we're gonna take our stitch marker, we're gonna open that up, and we're gonna place that in our first stitch. So pull up a loop to make sure that you don't lose that stitch that you just did. So let's take a look at what we have. So we have our magic ring, and then we did a chain 2 on the side, and then we have our first stitch here. If you are not familiar with what a stitch looks like, it basically looks like a little V right here. And we have the loop on our hook, which doesn't count as a chain or a stitch. And then the first stitch that we did is actually this little V that's right next to the loop on our hook. So we're going to take our stitch marker and we're going to place that inside of our first stitch. Now, before we continue, you want to make sure that you're still holding the piece correctly over the pinky, underneath the next 2, and over and around the pointer finger, and then grab that with your thumb and your middle finger, and then pull that down to make sure that it's not loose. So next we're going to continue with 9 more half double crochet stitches inside of the magic ring, and I'll be doing that along with you. So we're going to first yarn over, making sure the hook is away from us, and then place your hook inside of the magic ring once again. So this is what we should have. And then we're just going to hook onto the yarn. Once again, don't wrap it around like that to where you have 2 loops on your hook. Just grab it with the base of your hook and then pull that up so that you have 3 loops above the magic ring. Next, you want to yarn over again. So this is what we should have. And then place your hook down, pull it through. And here we have our second half double crochet. So let's do that again. So I'm just going to tighten that, and then we're going to yarn over, and then notice that I'm lifting my pointer finger up because that creates tension while I'm crocheting, and then I'm holding the magic ring. So I did my yarn over, then I'm going to place the hook inside of the magic ring, then I grabbed the yarn, and now I have 3 loops on my hook. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull that through all 3 with my hook facing down. Now let's just recap. We should have 3 stitches. So let's count. 1, 2, and 3. So we have 3 stitches, and that is correct. So one thing you want to keep in mind while you're crocheting is that you don't want to lose the tail of your magic ring. So you see how mine is kind of short? Once we get to a point where your magic ring tail is lost, then that means that you've lost your magic ring. So you always want to keep track of your tail and make sure that it doesn't get lost. So you want to make sure that it's not super short like this. So after every half double crochet, you want to make sure that you could still see your magic ring. because if you get to a point where you don't see it and it comes out, then you have to start over again, which is not the end of the world, but it will be great if you don't have to get to that point. So next, let's continue. Let's do 7 more. So I'm going to yarn over, place my hook inside of the magic ring once again. Then we're going to hook the yarn and pull it up so that we have 3 loops above the magic ring, and then yarn over and pull through all 3. So take your time once again. So let's continue. Yarn over, place your hook inside of the magic ring, grab the yarn with your hook, don't wrap it around. Then we have 3 loops above the magic ring, yarn over, and place that through all 3. So let's continue. Yarn over, place it inside of the magic ring, then we're going to hook, pull it up, yarn over, and then pull through all 3. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do 4 more. Yarn over, place it inside of the magic ring, grab it. Now we have 3 loops above the magic ring, yarn over and place through all 3. Let's do another one. Yarn over, place it inside of the magic ring, grab this piece of yarn. Now we have 3 loops above our magic ring. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 with the hook facing down. Now let's do 2 more. Oop, I lost the placement. So when you're crocheting, you want to make sure that you always have this placement and make sure that it's tight, because once it starts to get loose and you lose your placement of the yarn, it's going to make it harder for you to crochet because you won't have enough tension. So let's do 2 more. Yarn over, place it inside of the magic ring, grab the yarn, pull up 3 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3. Let's do 1 more. And when I'm doing this, you'll see that the end of my magic ring, the tail, is still facing out and I could still see it and I'm not crocheting around it, so we're good. So we're going to yarn over, place it inside of the magic ring, then grab that piece of yarn, pull it up, and then yarn over and place through all 3. So here we have 10, but let's just count and make sure. Starting with this stitch marker, which tells us where the first stitch is: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you don't have 10, then make sure that you have 10 by either taking some stitches out or adding more in there. Now, we're going to take this tail in and we're going to pull it. So you should be able to pull it and then the middle of the magic ring closes. If you're pulling it and it doesn't close properly, then that means that you probably locked it in place and you should start over, which, like I said before, is not the end of the world. You could just start from the magic ring and then continue half double crocheting until you get to 10 again, and follow along with the video. Next, you can see that we have a circle, but it's kind of a broken circle. So in order to close this circle, we're actually going to take our hook and then we're going to place it in our first stitch. And we actually have our stitch marker in the first stitch, so it's easy to figure that out. So we're going to take our hook and we're going to place it where that first stitch is and then put that inside. So next, we're going to yarn over again, and we're actually going to pull this piece of yarn on our hook that we just grabbed, and then we're going to pull that through this stitch. So now that we pulled it through that stitch, we have 2 loops on our hook, and we're going to take this loop and pull it through the original loop. So I just pulled that through, and what we just did was a slip stitch. Now we've completed the first round, we can continue to the second round. Now that we have closed our circle, we could add in our new color. To do that, we're gonna pull up a loop and then we're gonna take our scissors and cut it. And if you don't have scissors, don't worry, just take the rest of the yarn and then just put that in the back and then just hide it until you get scissors later. Next, we're gonna take our hook and we're gonna place it in the first stitch where our stitch marker is, and then take our petal colored yarn and then place that on the hook and then pull it through that first stitch. So here we have our second colored yarn and it's through the first stitch where our stitch marker is, and we should have some of our short yarn just hanging out like this, and you just put that in the back where this short yellow piece is and just place that away so that it's not in the way. Then next we're going to take our stitch marker and just move that out of the way as well so that everything's out of the way for you. Next, we're going to yarn over, making sure that the hook is facing away from us once again. And then we're going to locate the second stitch. So here is our first stitch right here where the stitch marker is. And we're going to move to the next one, which is this one. And we're going to take our hook and then place it in the second stitch. And then just make sure that this piece of yarn isn't coming undone. So after that, we're going to place a half double crochet by just wrapping our hook around that yarn, pulling it through so that we have 3 loops on our hook above the piece like so. Then we're going to yarn over and then place this through those 3 loops. And once again, making sure that our hook is facing downward and that we're not lifting up or lifting down, just pulling straight across to make that first half double crochet. And you see that at this point we've kind of hidden our stitch marker. That's okay. So next, what we're gonna do is we're going to place another stitch inside of that same stitch that we've just crocheted into, and we're gonna do another stitch that's actually called the double crochet stitch. So we're gonna yarn over just like the half double crochet stitch. We're gonna place it in that same stitch that we just crocheted our half double crochet into. So we're gonna place that in there, and then we're gonna grab the yarn again, pull it through so that we have 3 loops on our hook once again. But this time we're gonna yarn over and pull through only 2. So now we're left with 2 loops on our hook. Then we're gonna yarn over again and pull through 2 for a double crochet. And you'll see that this double crochet stitch is actually a tad bit taller than the half double crochet that we just did. Next, we're going to chain 2 by yarning over and pulling through that original loop. Then we're going to do that again, yarn over, pull through that loop. So we just chained twice. Next, we're going to yarn over in order to place a double crochet stitch. So we're going to go back where we've just placed the half double crochet and the double crochet stitch in. We're going to go back into the same one. Then we're going to yarn over, just pull that up so that we have 3 loops on our hook once again. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And lastly, for this stitch, we're going to place a half double crochet stitch. So we're going to yarn over, place it inside of that same stitch. So you want to pull it tight and make sure that we're still holding the piece correctly, like so. So make sure that we're still keeping our tension. Then we're going to grab that yarn again, pull it up so that we have 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through all 3, and we're going to take our time. So now we have all of these stitches in this one stitch right here. So next we're going to just pull that off to the side and try to find the next stitch. So this is the stitch that we just placed all of those stitches into. So that means that this is our next stitch. So if you don't pull it off to the side, you may be like, oh, well, this is our next stitch. But if you pull it to the side, you'll see that this is actually our next stitch. So we're going to take our hook and we're going to place it in that next stitch. Then we're going to place a slip stitch. So in order to do a slip stitch, we're just going to grab that yarn, pull it through that stitch that our hook was in. Then we're going to take this loop and pull it through this loop here. So now that we've pulled it through, we just completed our slip stitch. So now that we look at this, you'll see that we just completed one full petal. So now we're going to do another petal. So we just slip stitch into this stitch. So that was our last stitch. Now we're going to move to this one right here, which is our third stitch. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. So we're going to yarn over, place our hook in the next stitch right here, and we're going to place a half double crochet stitch. So we're going to pull up that loop again, yarn over, and pull through all three. And we're going to take our time when we do this. Next, we're going to do a double crochet stitch. So yarn over, put it through that same stitch that we have our half double crochet in, grab that yarn once again, pull it up. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we're going to chain 2. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we're going to place a double crochet in that same stitch, yarn over, put it through that same stitch, pull it tight. Then we're going to grab that yarn again, pull it through so that we have 3 loops on our hook now. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and let's finish this off with a half double crochet stitch. So yarn over, put it inside of that stitch right there. Then we're going to grab that again. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 for half double crochet stitch. So once again, we're going to pull all of our stitches to the side in order to place a slip stitch in the next stitch. So this is the one that we place all of our stitches in. So this is our next stitch. So we're going to place our hook in there. Then grab that yarn, pull it up so that we have just 2 loops on our hook. Then we're going to take this loop and pull it through the original loop. So now you can see we have 2 petals. So we're going to do 3 more. So to do that, we're going to yarn over, and I'm going to do this with you one more time. So we're going to take our hook and place it in the next stitch, which is this one right here. Then we're going to yarn over so that we have 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through all 3, then yarn over, put it in that same stitch for a double crochet stitch. Then we're going to take that yarn, pull it through so that we have 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Next, we're going to chain 2. So yarn over, pull through for chain 1, yarn over, pull through for chain 2. Next, we're going to yarn over and we're going to put the hook in that same stitch as before, pull it tight. Then we're going to pull that yarn through where we have 3 loops on our hook once again. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 for a double crochet. And lastly, let's complete it with a half double crochet stitch. So let's yarn over, put it inside of that same stitch that we've been working in. Then we're going to grab up that loop again. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3. Next, to finish that off, we're going to do a slip stitch in the next stitch. So you'll pull it to the side and you'll see that this is the last stitch that we worked into. So that means that this is the next stitch. So put our hook in there. Then we're going to grab the yarn, pull it through so that we have 2. Take this loop and pull it through the second one. So now we have 3 petals. So we're going to do that 2 more times where we're going to place in the next stitch a half double crochet followed by a double crochet stitch, then 2 chains, and then another double crochet stitch, and then a half double crochet stitch, all in this stitch right here. Then in the next one, we're going to place a slip stitch, and we're going to do the same thing in this one, And then I'm gonna meet you at the last slip stitch. I've just completed my 5th petal. Now we could finish off with our last slip stitch. So next you could see that there's like this big gap right here. In order to close that gap, we're just gonna place it where our stitch marker is. So right here, so you see where my stitch marker is peeking out, we're gonna place our hook in there. Make sure you pull it tight and you hold the piece like how I told you before. Then we're gonna grab that yarn like so, pull it through so that we have 2 loops on our hook. Then we're gonna pull it through the original loop for a slip stitch. And now you see that we've actually just completed a flower. Now we could pull up a loop and then cut that yarn. Next, we're gonna take the yarn in the back that's connected to our magic ring and pull it as tight as you can so that there's no hole in the middle. And now you just take your stitch marker out, and now we have our flower. For the next part, I'm going to teach you how to hide your yarn tails and then add the keychain at the top. Next, we're going to take our darning needle and we're going to take the piece of yarn that's on the outside and then just place that on the yarn like so. Just pull that through. And then we're going to take our needle and then just push that down to the center of the star, and make sure that we're doing this on the wrong side. So just look at the star. This is the correct side and this is the wrong side where the tail is. So make sure you're doing this on the wrong side. So we're just going to take our hook and then just place it through the stitches going down. Then pull that through. Then we're going to take both pieces of yarn and then just tie them and pull them as tight as we can. And I like to double knot mine. Next, we're going to take both pieces and then we're just going to thread them. Maybe you could put 2 pieces in at the same time. Might be a little tricky, but I've never tried this before. Let's see if it works. Then I'm just going to thread that inside of the magic ring, and then I'm just going to thread that into the star in the nearby stitches. So it doesn't really matter which stitches you do. Just pull that through. Take your time with this. You can do one by one. I'm just doing both to save time. And then just going to thread that through just a little bit more. Okay, that seems good. And let's pull it through and then pull that. Next, we're going to take our scissors and then cut that as close as we can without cutting the star itself. And now we've just hidden the tails. So now let's just manipulate the star to our liking, and then let's grab our keychain. Next, we're going to take the rest of our yarn and then place that through the needle. Then we're going to take one of the points that we really like and then just feed that through, and then you could take your needle out, and then once that's through, you just want to feed the end of the yarn through the keychain, and it's going to be a little fuzzy, so you might want to just twist it and then push that through. Grab that on the other side and pull that through. Now we're going to take the ends and then we're going to tie that super duper tight. So after the first tie, you just want to make sure that that's actually to your liking. So make sure that it's at a place that you like, and then, like I said, pull that tight again, and then you want to double knot it. Then we're going to take our scissors and then cut it. And then just make sure that that's secure. If it's not secure, then knot it again. So next, we're going to take these ends once again and then just use the darning needle to thread that through. My yarn is kind of short, so it's going to be a little tricky. Just push that through, pull it, and now you've just completed your flower keychain. I hope you had a lot of fun making your keychain. Please check out our other beginner kits at toppiesbytyra.com. And also please show us your process and your finished piece by tagging Toppies by Tyra. Bye!